What's up guys, Marco here and welcome to today's new video where I want to talk about a very important topic. And especially if you are an e-commerce business, this will be helpful for you, but technically even with other sorts of like online businesses or business in general. In today's video, however, I want to focus everything on e-commerce and also to a degree on Google Ads. So if you're using Google Ads to fuel your e-commerce business, then I assume this will be even more helpful for you. What I want to talk about here today is having the end goal in mind when you run your store or your business. Because especially lately, where I started working with so many people personally, whether it's managing their ad campaigns or helping them one-on-one or some sort of direct interaction with those people, I realized that many people actually focus on the wrong things, okay? So they focus on the wrong metrics, they focus on the wrong goals in their business, they focus on the wrong sub goals, they focus on a lot of things that are not really helping their business in the end, or at least not in the best possible way. And basically what I mean with that is that if you run an e-commerce business, of course it is pretty obvious that your main goal are sales, right? It's making a sale depending on what type of business you really are. If you're like building a brand, then probably customer lifetime value is even more important than sales. But for most dropshippers or for most small e-commerce business owners that are just like reselling, it's usually sales because customer lifetime value tends to be quite low. So what I want to tell you basically in this video is how you need to focus on that end goal and then work from there backwards. And this sounds pretty self-explanatory, pretty intuitive, but many people don't really do that in the right way. So as an example, I get a lot of people that message me like, hey Marco, you know, I'm starting a new store and my click-through rate is a little low. What can I do, right? And then they talk about the click-through rate and how they are like convinced they need a higher click-through rate, even though there is no sort of there is no real sale yet. Maybe there aren't even add to carts yet or something like that, but they have gotten like 100 clicks, but they worry about their click-through rate, or they worry about the time people spend on their site and something. Now, some of these metrics are important later on, or are important when you want to find out how your site overall is performing. But if you focus on them without having the next step in mind, then this doesn't really work. So the click-through rate example, to get back to the click-through rate example, the click-through rate, increasing it is very helpful and important if you want to scale. Let's say you get 10,000 impressions a day and you have a 1% click-through rate on Google Ads, Google Shopping, whatever, or even Facebook. This means you get 100 clicks a day. Now, if you cannot get more than 10,000 impressions, then the only way to get more clicks is increasing that click-through rate, right? If you manage to get it to 2%, suddenly you get double the clicks to your site every single day. If you manage to get it to 3%, you get 300 clicks a day. So then, yes, if you have a proof of concept, if you get sales and you know, everything is working, but you want to scale, and you identify that you cannot grow by getting more impressions, then this is the thing to focus on, right? Getting a high click-through rate is your sort of key metric in that moment. However, if you want to start, then first of all, the big focus is making a sale or making the first sale, right? Then you can work backwards from there. In order to make sales, you need what? Well, add to carts. So what do you need in order to make add to carts? Well, in order to convince someone to add something to cart, your site needs to be convincing the people properly with the good description. You need good images so that people can actually understand what the product looks like in reality. You need an okay price. If your price is like insanely high, it is very unlikely that someone will add something in the cart in the first place, because add to cart is like a micro commitment. So if you get a lot of add to carts, it means something is already, you know, going right with your website, because we can expect that every 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 add to carts will result typically in a sale, okay? So if you get a lot of add to carts, something is already going in the right direction, because nobody adds something to cart if everything is bad about your website. So pictures, description, price has to be okay, the navigation, the website has to load somewhat quickly. You need to be able to convince people that you are like a trustworthy business. So if you have colors all over the place and everything looks really bad and scammy, people probably also don't add something to the cart in the first place, right? So this is like one step backwards. You want to have a sale, so you need on average, let's say 5 add to carts to make a sale. So you can go backwards and say, okay, do I get add to carts in the first place? And if you don't get any add to carts, maybe it's one of these issues that we just described. And if you get a lot of add to carts but no sales, maybe there is like some intransparency, or maybe there's some hidden cost, or maybe there is something wrong in the checkout process or something like that. But that's how you work backwards. So then we can get one step behind, and then we say, okay, we need add to carts. In order to get add to carts, we need clicks, right? And in this case also we need relevant clicks. So we go back and let's say we use Google Ads, as I said. We want to see how can we get clicks in case we don't have any. So if we don't get add to carts, but we also get very few clicks, then our main goal at this moment should be getting clicks. And we can do that by, for example, having a higher bid, right? Because then we show more often, and also the chance that we get more clicks is higher. But we can also change, for example, the product image on a Google Shopping ad. So maybe we get a higher click-through rate, or we can rewrite our Google search ad with some numbers in there, or changing some things and adding some headlines or something like that to increase click-through rates, to get more clicks, so that we can actually get enough clicks that an add to cart is actually more likely to happen. Because with 5 clicks a day, it may take a pretty long time to get even a good number of add to carts, right? If we go one step back again, then we can say, okay, we get like almost no clicks because we also don't get any impressions really. And then we can look at, okay, how do we get impressions? Well, increasing the bid is the biggest one. Maybe also increasing the budget if it's very, very low, but normally it's the bid. Also making sure that we add relevant keywords in the title and description of our shopping ad, or in case we have a search ad, that we review our keywords. You know, are they too specific, too narrow? Are you using exact matches all the time? These are ways to get more impressions, which will then typically result in more clicks, which will then, if these clicks are relevant, right? If you get like the people that are actually looking for a product like yours, if you make sure that you have a good negative keyword list, etc., then based on these clicks you can get add to carts. And if you have add to carts, then based on these you can actually at some point make a sale. As I said, typically around 5 add to carts can result in a sale. So the whole point here, and I know this sounds pretty intuitive, this sounds pretty standard, but ultimately many people forget about it. Like they start somewhere randomly, they start with, hey, I get 10 clicks a day, is that right? Is something wrong here? Without looking at, okay, what's the previous stage? Do you get good impressions in the first place? What's the next stage? Do you already get, did you already get an add to cart so far? You know, you have been running ads for 3 weeks, you get 10 clicks a day, but not a single add to cart yet. Is this maybe the issue? Do you need to rework your page so that you can actually entice people to add something to the cart in the first place? For example, doing all the things that I mentioned, and also things like discounts, etc. And then you always have to find like your bottleneck. Like what's the bottleneck in your store? Having the end goal of sales in mind, but then working backwards. What's the bottleneck? Do you need to focus on improving conversion rate, improving click-through rate, improving relevance, and getting more impressions, and so on and so forth? And then you can, of course, get the end result of selling. And as I said, this sounds pretty straightforward, and maybe this wasn't something totally new for you, but the point is that this is extremely important. And of course, it's easier said than done, but having this thing in mind allows you to really then focus on the tactics, right? Then focus on bidding strategies and having the right ad and building negative keyword lists. And whether you do that with like YouTube content or an eCom Google Ads training like mine, whatever you do, the point is you need to understand the concept first, like focus on the main thing, focus on the end result and work backwards, and then use all the tactics and strategies and tools and trainings and whatnot to get there and to do like the tactical stuff to move between these different metrics. So this was a fairly short video, a lot of theory in this case. I hope it was valuable for you. I'm sure that if you have been running e-commerce businesses for a while, then this was totally obvious for you anyway. But if you are just starting, or if you are currently confused a little bit, then I hope that you still got some value out of this video and that you have a little more clarity to not focus on the wrong things, if you should rather focus on the step that comes next or before instead. So with this being said, thanks a lot for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and please also subscribe if you want to see more e-commerce, dropshipping, and Google Ads content like this. And until then, I wish you all the best with your business, and I hope to see you in the next video as well.